to the pop culture cosmos.
And we're back. And we're back once again. That's right. It is, of course, the pop culture cosmos. It is Gerald Glassford. Truly appreciate you joining us from the pop culture cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, and the Lakers Fast Break. Truly appreciate everything that you do for us out there for all of our different shows. But it wouldn't be a pop culture cosmos without my good friend indeed. It is, of course, the man behind so many great things, including Humanity Media, the Happy Hoarder, the Plucky Gamer, and more. Go ahead and check out him on all those great social media outlets. It is the very, how shall I say, active social media guy indeed. It is, of course, my good friend, Josh the Great Peterson. What's up, man?
What's up? I'd say the issue is that, as my wife says, I'm not active enough on social media. If you look at like
Mhm.
the Happy Hoarder and the Plucky Gamer, they need to be more active, is what I'm told. So I gotta work on. I'm falling short, man. I gotta work on it.
Okay. All right.
Also,
Well,
I have a theory for you, conspiracy
uh
theory. All right, you ready to?
uh-oh. Here we go.
All right, I think that Avatar 3 was so bad that Disney is like, "Hey, how can we make this movie continue to make money?" They're paying their employees to go see the movie. That's my theory, all right? 'Cause,
Mhm.
how else would a movie that people have said is not good continue to get, so many $1,000,000 a week? I could be wrong, though. I'm probably wrong, but, I can see Disney doing something like that.
Well, if that's the case, we will find out again. Although it did win again the box office with something I wanted to talk to you about. I didn't list in the notes real quick, but it has reached $1.3 billion. Even though again your mileage may vary. I think the mileage on Avatar is varied, but again we've talked about this. There's only so much love that people have for Avatar, and again, it is enough worldwide to go ahead and still generate over $1 billion. It'll probably reach now. My guess it'll probably sneak over $1.4 billion. I don't know if it'll get to 1.5, but it'll go over $1.4 billion. The thing I want to ask you though is before we get into God of War and some of the other stuff that we're heading into. By the way, 490. We're 10 episodes away from the big 500. And boy, uh,
What?
trying to get some plans together for that. But be that as it may, I don't know. It looks like Avatar is still something that people want to see overseas. The main reason why it probably won't reach $2 billion is here in the States. Here in the States, it's not as much revered. It's nowhere near the numbers here in the state that it once was for the previous two Avatar films. Your
Yeah.
thoughts, my friend? I think that's when it comes down to when Disney looks at it, whether or not they want to do two more of these. I think that fact is it might not still resonate anymore with the US as opposed to the rest of the world. Rest of the world could still generate 7, 800, 900, $1 billion. The problem is here in the States, it's still a tough ask.
What's funny is that we always talk about like our people going back to the movies, right? And I think that
Mhm.
we need to start dividing that conversation between domestic and international, because if you look at it, a lot of the movies over the course of 2025 that did really well, they
Mhm.
did not do well domestically. Like they did okay domestically, but they did not do probably over 70% of the numbers came from international viewings, which is
Yes.
crazy. So I think in America, I think the movie going culture is completely different from what it is internationally right now. I think that we're still not going to the movies as often as studios would like. So they're really banking on that international dollar coming in. But um yeah, I mean Avatar, and here's the thing though, like I don't think in the eyes of Disney, I don't think it matters like where the money's coming from as long as the money is coming, Like look at like Zootopia, right? That one did pretty well here, but it did even better overseas,
Yes.
especially in China. So I think
Yes.
as long as the money is coming in and it's not hurting their bottom line. I think they'll continue to make these movies regardless of where they come from, as long as the money is being made. Uh, I guess like we'll have to. So this one did 360 right now. It's about 367 $1 million domestically. So I think that Americans would have to stop going to see Avatar movies altogether and really like put a dent in that bottom line before Disney is like, oh, maybe we should stop making these. But I think it's still a matter of like, do people actually want more Avatar? Are people interested in the story anymore? And then I think with Avatar Fire and Ash, we'll get a real, and feel free to disagree with me, but I think we'll get a better scope of what it, how people are feeling about it here when it comes out on streaming, because I think that's where a majority of American movie people are going to watch it.
Well, to put things in perspective domestically, $367 million would get them right now third over. Like if it's since the movie that was released last year, $367 million domestically would put it third overall. Compared to Lilo and Stitch and a Minecraft movie, which both made $423 million worldwide. So again, when you look at it from that perspective, it's made a decent amount here in the States, but comparatively, like you said, overseas, it's still the bulk of the work. The bulk of the work, as far as it's concerned, is being done by, of course, overseas. And same thing with Zootopia. Zootopia, even though it has garnered close to $400 million worldwide here, collectively in the United States, overseas, like you said, especially with China, has really, really garnered a lot of money. It is now, I believe, it is over $1.7 billion. It is the highest grossing U.S. Hollywood, I should say, Hollywood animated movie of all time. Nezha 2 last year actually still has more in the kitty, but it is of the biggest animated movie from Hollywood ever. So yeah, again, and like when you look at it, that internationally, like you said, $1.3 billion worldwide internationally, and then domestically, it's only 400 million. So again, it's interesting because in the past, a lot of the weight, a lot of the carrying had to be done by the United States, but as of now, I think again, since the pandemic, since the advent of streaming, Americans are slower to get to the movie theaters than what we're seeing overseas.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And but I mean, again, though, man, I think it is a matter of streaming. I think streaming is the one thing that is majorly slowing Americans down from going to the movie theaters. I we see it with Marvel stuff. We see it with basically anything Disney. And now that Netflix is about to acquire Warner Brothers, like this, we one day we need to sit down and talk about like the effect that is going to have on box office, domestic box office numbers, because I think
But we're
that's going
still
to
kind
be.
of waiting to see if it's going to go through because, Paramount is pulling every trick in the book to try and prevent Netflix from acquiring Warner Brothers. So as we saw with Xbox and how long that took that to drag out for the Activision purchase, I want to wait and see before I really start talking about the what ifs when it comes to Warner Brothers and Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, so like if it happened, though, it would, it would affect things. I
Oh yeah,
think.
yeah, absolutely. Oh no, don't doubt, my friend. Again, either which way, whether it goes to Paramount or whether it goes to Netflix, is going to make a dynamic shift as far as the entertainment business world is. Absolutely, there's no question about that. So, with that, my friend, though, at the box office again here domestically, getting back to the United States. Avatar Fire and Ash did win for a fifth straight week. It did sneak out a win over 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Now, The Bone Temple's actually gotten pretty good reviews,
Yeah.
but it seems like the problem is this that I think we talked about whether the steam is running out on Avatar. The steam may be running out on 28 years later, or the 28 IP series.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I thought about that too. I don't think that it's a matter of the steam running out. I think it's a matter of like 28 Days Later came out when I was in the seventh grade,
Mhm.
right? The original. And it's been radio silence since. I think what we're seeing here is a Blade Runner problem. You have a bunch of people who don't know, like, look at, we we have a semicolon title, right? 28 days later, the Bone Temple. Like we have, or 28 years later, the Bone Temple. So we're people are looking at this and probably thinking to themselves like, I need to go watch the rest of the movies, but I don't have time to watch the rest of the movies. So wow, how do I jump in on this? And like with the Bone Temple, the way that the last 20 or 28 years later ended, you really have to watch that movie to understand what's going on in the Bone Temple. And I thought 28 years later was a phenomenal film. So I am excited to go watch this. I don't know if I'll be able to watch it in theaters because January's Girl Scout cookie month, man. If y'all want some Girl Scout cookies, reach out to me. All right. My wife's Girl Scout troop leader, and we got a whole living room full of cookies.
Give me
Anyways,
send me information because if I can order it online, I have two young ladies, former Girl Scouts, that are have already talked about being interested in it.
all right, you got it. Anyways, yeah. So I think we're in a situation where people don't know, they're not familiar with what it is. I don't think it's a matter of steam running out. I think that there was no steam to begin with, and that's the problem.
No, there you go. Again, whatever it may be, I think again, whether you think it's run out of steam or not, I think that this series should have gone the way of streaming first. I don't know. I mean, when 28 years later came out, it got some interest, but I don't know if it was considered a massive hit worldwide. I really think that if, let's say, they'd gone straight to Netflix, I really think that Netflix would have, as far as a day and date streaming, as far as right there, I think it would have done even better and would have continued this. I think more people would have been excited for it if it had been a streaming only release. And that's something, again, as a entertainment business, what do? You have to look at your movie and say, is it more advantageous to put it out straight to streaming, or is it more advantageous to go ahead and release it in the theaters? Because again, it does cost money to advertise a movie, to put out a movie, to make the films, to put it as far as the actual film itself, and then release it to all the different theaters and whatnot. It's something that they have to start looking more into because they just can't necessarily just put it out in theaters and like everybody says, see if it sticks, especially here in the United States.
Yeah, well, so what's weird is that it in its first week on Netflix, it got 3.2 million views, right? So if you translate that into cost of a movie ticket, right, you're looking at about $32 million. So
But
it, I
20 years later, to give you an idea, the budget was around 60, 70 million. You added another, what, maybe twice that, you double that with the advertising budget, and it made around 150 million worldwide. So it broke even. Let's just say it broke even or made a slight profit as far as that's concerned out in theaters.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, this goes to show though that people are, there was some interest in the movie, but it's a streaming. People are waiting for this stuff to come out on streaming. So I'm thinking that when the Bone Temple hits a streaming platform, it will also, we'll see a pretty big boost in people watching it. Unfortunately, it doesn't.
Exactly the reason why they should have probably, in my opinion, put it out as a Netflix first movie.
Right, right, yeah, and unfortunately, that's not going to translate to box office revenue. But I mean, I'm not sure how the payout system works for the streaming services, but yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, and like I've said time and time again, right? That you once upon a time you could go to a movie theater and find a bunch of smaller, lesser known films playing, and people were willing to take chances on them, but they just don't do that anymore. It's not, you can go jump onto Netflix or HBO or whatever, and you can watch movies all day. It doesn't of any caliber.
Well, again, but these are tours, Danny Boyle and whatnot. I know that Nia DaCosta directed this one. Um, as far as this latest effort in the 2080 series.
Alex Garland wrote the script, man. I mean,
Yeah, and of course, Danny Boyle's still heavily involved in it as well, and he just, finished directing the 28 years later part of it. But remember, it's overseen by Sony, and Sony just renewed its deal with Netflix for programming going straight to Netflix going forward. Before we get to another aspect of Sony, with God of War and on Prime, of all things, it's funny because we mentioned Sony and Netflix, their close affiliation, but Sony is actually doing this God of War with Prime. Before we get to that, it's interesting because it hit me every time they talk about renewing their deal with Netflix. Every time they talk about their deal with Netflix, you must remember when Netflix was out there and in its infancy and more reliant on sending you a disc at home and in its infancy of streaming, very infancy of streaming in the early years, right around, the time that it started to come up with, programming, actually specific programming with it, there was an entity, a major entity in its wake by Sony called Crackle.
oh, that's
And
right. Yep.
and I wish someone, I think I pitched this to you before. It's like if I had money, if I for next time I talk to Rob, our friend director Rob McCallum, I really think, okay, I understand he likes to stay in his niche with stuff that's tied to Canada or stuff that ties to his interests with He-Man, video games, and the like, as far as what he does with his amazing documentaries. But I'd love to see him do a documentary on Crackle. And that's the thing about the rise and fall of Crackle. What could have been with Crackle? Because very easily, if certain things were done right, Crackle we'd be talking about instead of Netflix.
Yeah. Okay. So the only thing I remember Crackle having that was ever of any interest to me was the Snatch TV show, which was actually like really bad. So uh, I
But
think I
they have
watched.
the Sony library.
They had the Sony library, yeah, and it was it was free. You don't have to pay for Crackle. That was what was
Mhm,
amazing about it. But
mhm.
yeah, that went the way of the dodo, and I think that I think Sony partnering with streaming platforms is better because I mean they don't have. Actually, Sony has a pretty good library. I don't know why Crackle failed.
They had a big enough library, my friend, and yeah, they just mismanagement. It's mismanagement at its finest. When you see someone else in the space thrive and you fail, especially when you have a lead that they don't, because remember, they had to acquire all the stuff. They had to acquire, was it Friends, The Office, whatnot, as pillars of, because remember, that's how it really came into being. Netflix as a streaming platform wasn't their original programming. It was the fact that people were going there to watch The Office.
Yeah.
So that's and other stuff there too. So yeah, it was again, it's a what if scenario that I wish somebody would go ahead and do. I would be fascinating to go ahead and take a look down that rabbit hole per se. But again, with Sony, before we head out, speaking of Sony and streaming, it's funny. Again, we're talking about a God of War series and a God of War series that is coming to Amazon Prime. Sony just, I don't know why Netflix, of all things, Netflix passes over a God of War series. Okay, all right. So with that, my friend, some names have been announced as far as what's going on for the series. Talk a little bit more about your excitement for God of War.
Okay, so they have the big one here is Ryan Hurst as Kratos. Like that
Hmm.
was kind of came out of left field for me a little bit. So Ryan Hurst had I'm pretty sure his first movie is Remember the Titans. The most recent thing I remember him in was Sons of Anarchy. He played Opie. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean he fits the bill. You know, a lot of people wanted Christopher Judd to play Kratos, but yeah, I was really curious if they were going to end up doing that, but yeah, I mean, I can see Ryan Hurst having the build to play Kratos. I'm just curious, like, is the voice? How's he going to get the voice down? We have what was her name? Teresa Palmer as Sif, and
Sif.
then yeah, I forget who they said was playing uh
I got see right there. I see Ryan. Yes, Palmer. Yes, I don't see anybody else listed as of yet. So
And, yeah.
yes, but
Anyway,
I'm sure they'll be naming it shortly. If that's the
yeah,
case.
yeah. So I thought they had cast uh Thor and a couple other characters, but I don't remember. I can't find the
Oh, they have Chris Hemsworth. He's somewhat known.
right, right. Anyways, like it's gonna be interesting to see if they adapt if they're just adapting the 2018 God of War. And for people who have not actually played the games, are gonna watch the show, are you gonna is it gonna be accessible for them? Are they gonna be talking about Kratos' past in the Greek pantheon, or how's that gonna work? Because I mean, I know they have God of War and a Horizon series also coming out. So this is a these are stories that are rich in storytelling, and they have to be told just right. Like it Fallout is a weird series because you can literally jump in anywhere on the timeline, and it it's a little bit easier to spring off of Fallout than it is with God of War that has all
Mhm.
this rich lore behind it. So I guess this is going to be the true litmus test for Amazon Prime to see if they can launch a second highly successful video game series.
It's funny though because the real series they should be focusing on is Mass Effect, which was confirmed by, as or like we talked about last year, we actually dedicated part of a show to it, supposedly coming to Prime Video, and they talked about how it's not going to be set in the video game universe as far as the actual story is concerned, which I think is a mistake. I really, that's just hit series by numbers, do the math, do the dots, connect the dots.
Are you
Shepard.
are you saying you want it to be canon or
I want it to be canon. I want it to be canon. I want Shepard in there. You know what? That's a really go off on your side stories. We've already talked about this. I know you probably forgot our conversation, but I've talked about Shepard being that guy as far as whoever you put in that role and telling Shepard's story. I mean, it's now enough in the rearview mirror, and especially with a game coming out in 2090 by the time BioWare finishes it. But as far as the the actual series itself, that's enough in the rearview mirror that you should really think seriously about that story and how it connected with the audience and about how it connected with a great many gamers and what they have. I think it's going to hit a lot of people like a ton of bricks when they realize that it's not Shepard's story that they're going to tell. And I really think that's a sad mistake because it's so rich, it's so full of things. You could talk about, you could put, it has room for sideshows as far as prequels with Anderson's story, a sideshow if you want to do a female shep as far as, because it's the popularity of male shep and female shep. Or you could have a female shep run the series, and then have a side series with a male shep. I don't care either which. Just do Shepard's story. It's there. It's easy to adapt. It's right there for you. It makes no sense why they want to go in another direction than just label it Mass Effect. I will watch it because I've been asking for this since the dawn of time and since the dawn of when we started this show. But yeah, I am not uber thrilled that they're moving away from Shepard's story, especially if the fact that BioWare goes back to it. That's the irony, Josh. If the rumors are true and they go back to Shepard's story, or like we saw in that teaser back 5 years ago or 6 years ago almost. Yeah, I really think that Amazon needs to go into and tell Shepard's story. It's right there. It's right there.
yeah,
Right
yeah.
there.
All right, I got a theory for you, all right? I think that they are going to tell Shepard's story. I think they're gonna create their own cinematic universe, like, world that's gonna be separate from the game. So I think they're gonna tell Shepard's story. I think because there are so many missteps with the games, they're trying to distance themselves, where I think it's gonna be a Witcher scenario. I think we're gonna have a story. It's gonna tell the story, but it's not going to be page for page from the video game script.
That's a guy saves Citadel, guy gets his friends together in the second to save the universe, then guy sacrifices himself to save the universe in the third. as far as that's 3 seasons right there you could make, or 6 seasons. You could put it over the course of 6 seasons. That is right there. It's silver platter, man. Silver platter. Silver
Yeah.
platter. I just absolutely. I cannot believe that. I will watch it again. Like I said, I will not sit here and tell you differently. I will watch it day one because I have been asking for this for 10 years almost. Well, actually, since probably before we started Pop Culture Cosmos, I've been asking for when we were doing Game Source. So I'll just leave it at that. But again, with all that's out there, what are your thoughts out there on what's going on with the box office? 28 years later, The Bone Temple, of course, Avatar, Fire and Ash, Zootopia 2, and then, of course, the announcements made on the latest streaming video game adaptation. Although we have already seen Sophie Turner now as, of course, Lara Croft. So yeah, that's interesting as well for that. I think that's also on Prime. So yeah, go ahead and check out Prime's video game series coming up. If you have thoughts on it, please let us know. Pop Culture Cosmos at yahoo.com. But my friend, there's still much more to talk about on today's show. Wanted to go ahead and hear your thoughts on the Star Wars succession as Kathleen Kennedy. I swear to God, my friend, I thought we reported on this show when Kathleen Kennedy announced she would be leaving. I thought it was the end of the year. I really thought she was gone at the end of the year because she was going to retire, et cetera, et cetera. I thought we'd reported that. And, it may have slipped my mind, or that she went back on it, what have you. Well, shortly after the year started, she has now decided to call it a day. And Star Wars is going the way of DC, my friend. What are your thoughts on, of course, Dave Filoni seeming that, that was destined to be him being the student, him being the Anakin Skywalker per se, the Darth Vader becoming, stepping up to the plate. He becomes he becomes the master. He is no longer the student. Now he becomes the master. He is now ruling over the creative side, but they have a financial CEO, a CFO to go alongside as well. They're doing the way of DC with James Gunn, and also a head of as far as what they're doing, as far as as far as the business side of it. You have a creative side and a business side as dual CEOs going forward in both those places. What are your thoughts on the changes now being made in Star Wars?
So did Kathleen Kennedy step down, or was she they're like, "Hey, the door is open. We strongly encourage you to walk out that door."
I thought that, again, when she originally announced last year, I think it was several months ago, I thought it was that she was going to step down the end of the year, but I guess it was like open ended. And then she decided last week she was going to step down ASAP. And in comes Dave Filoni, who, as you know, is going to, wrote and was a major part of the upcoming Mandalorian Grogu, and all he's got his fingerprints all over the Star Wars shows at this point in time. His background from the animated series and whatnot. So yeah, it just looks like the change need to be made. She wants out, and she's got out. So yeah, I think a lot of people are happy. A lot of Star Wars fans are happy because of her real mixed success, and you do have to say really mixed success with the franchise since she took over. And also don't forget the Indiana Jones franchise as well, which on a video game front, really it now has a new life, but on the movie front has nothing coming up, as she admitted to. There's nothing on the way for Indiana Jones fans, but on the way out, again, she mentioned that, the Star Wars fans, as far as the toxic nature and whatnot, I just think it was time for a change, and now Dave Filoni is the guy in charge.
Yeah, I think that's weird for me. Or not weird, but like I think Kathleen Kennedy helped create that toxic culture, though. I mean, because and not saying that she shouldn't have made what she made or whatever, but like when you go into Star Wars, you know what the fan base is going to be like, and you know that if you swerve from what they are there for, that you're going to cause some problems. And that's like she she knew what she was doing when she was doing it. But regardless of that, I'm not saying those movies shouldn't have been made. I'm not saying they were good. I'm not saying they were bad. I'm just like I've said before, I'm impartial to them. But um,
Well, this goes back before though Kathleen Kennedy stepped in. I mean, because the prequels themselves in the 90s were not
but
exactly the most revered as well.
right, right. But do you notice like how now everyone's like, oh, maybe the prequels aren't that bad, just in the
They're
wake
that
of.
bad. They're that bad.
But I would go as far to argue that the newer trilogy was worse than the prequels.
I don't know. For me, it's like, yeah, the last two are terrible, but the first one was,
The first was
they
okay.
copy and paste from the original Star
Yeah,
Wars, so
yeah.
it wasn't that bad. It was
But
like, okay. Of the 6 films, the prequels and this latest trilogy, I would say Star Wars: The Force Awakens is the best of those films.
yeah,
The prequels are poorly acted, but and dull. The last 2 films are just terrible. So you're right. It your mileage may vary. Again, I suffered through all 6 as is just basically what went on. It's
yeah. It was
I mean,
funny. Oh,
Rogue
go
One is which is a side
Oh,
story.
amazing. Love Rogue One.
I liked Rogue One, but now I really like Rogue One because of what I saw with Andor. Andor makes Rogue One for me a much better film, and because Rogue One, as I've told you, excuse me, not Rogue One, Andor, as I told you, is the best Star Wars since Empire Strikes Back, and it's not even close.
For me, and I know a lot of people had mixed feelings on Solo, but like I think Rogue One and Solo were like little gems in this the dung pile of like the last 10 years of Star Wars, like
The first 10 minutes of Solo is truly horrific for me, but after that, it's actually a pretty good movie.
yeah, yeah. So like I thought that those like side stories were good compared to what turned out to be like an atrocious series of films. But it's funny because a lot of people went into episode 7 or whatever, right? The Force Awakens, and they're like holding their breath. Like, is the next 6 or 7 years of Star Wars, the rest of this trilogy going to be good? And people walked out like, oh, it was okay. And then came the next one, like that was a big moment in Star Wars history there. But let me ask you this: like, regardless of Kathleen Kennedy, right, and Dave Filoni has his credits, right? Do you think that Star Wars is salvageable at this point? Because like, look at Marvel. Marvel has a whole bunch of stories they can tell, right? Marvel, it does, like, I think that Marvel can save itself. I think that they just need to latch onto some heroes that people actually like. But yeah, I said Marvel, right? Yeah, Marvel has a bunch of characters. They can basically start over anywhere they want to. Star
They
Wars,
will be soon.
yeah. But Disney is obsessed with this one era of Star Wars, and there will be no success for in my opinion, there will be no success for Star Wars ever unless they're willing to push that timeline aside and start over, because they don't have the rich repertoire of characters that Marvel does. They don't, so like, how are they going to shape the next 20 years of Star Wars? Do you think they can?
I spoke to this about with TJ Johnson. In fact, it is one of the major questions that has been brought up to me out in the street and emailed and commented on as far as when we do these shows. And that is, what's the future of Star Wars? And as I was talking to him on this, when it comes up in a later episode, I did mention to him that something, our conversation in the past, what could we do to fix Star Wars? We actually dedicated an episode to this, and you and I both agreed that they need to get out of the Skywalker saga. They need to get out and create a whole new legacy, a whole new timeline in a galaxy far, far away that a younger audience can adapt to. Not ours,
Right.
but a younger audience can grow up with. Because why do we love Star Wars so much? Despite all the bad trash that they've spewed out there with the prequels, and also as well this latest trilogy, the second and third films primarily, is because of the fact that we have such fond memories as kids, as young people, to go ahead and that went ahead and watched the original trilogy and how much it resonated with us. The next two films, Mandalorian, Grogu, and the Ryan Gosling Starfighter movie, which may or may not have a Tom Cruise lightsaber scene in it. Mileage may vary on that one. But it supposedly he did film it. I will just say that. Um, it's still set somewhat near and around or has ties to the Skywalker's universe, and that just has to go. It just has to go. We have to go into a new place and let go of that era that is so fondly remembered by individuals our ages and create a new series of memories for a younger generation that they can resonate with, that they can 50 years from now talk about with their kids about how wonderful it was that Disney and Star Wars built something for them. That's the thing. I don't see
Yes.
Hollywood building something for them right now that they can grow up. They're missing the point. We're seeing sequels and stuff like that right now. Zootopia 2. Zootopia 2, okay, it's coming out. A lot of kids are loving and enjoying it. That's great. The original Zootopia came out what, 6, 7, 8 years ago or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, it was I was in my 20s when that came out. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's not coming out. Things are not coming out for a specific generation and allowing them to
Ye
grow to make their own, and especially this younger generation. So if you don't want apathy from a younger generation about going to the movie theaters, build something from the ground up for them. It is risky. I understand it. I get it, but sometimes you don't want, and most of the time you don't want history repeating itself unless it's for something good. You sometimes you do have to go look back in history and say, you know what, that worked. Can we make it work again? And that's what I think that they need to do with Star Wars.
Okay, so it's funny you say this. So I had a conversation with my dad last week, and I won't my dad I won't get I'm not going to get into the specifics, but I told my dad, I'm like, the reason like the world is the way the world is right now is because you have people who are like in their 70s and 80s like dictating what the future is going to look like for young people, and they won't even be around to experience it. And then it's the same thing with movie studios. Though you have all this like old blood, old money in the heads of these studios, and they're shaping a world that they think works for them, and not a world of cinema that works for people, that is relevant to people growing up right now.
I agree, my friend. I agree 100%. And again, as long as we continue to ignore the younger generations of this world, we're going to get the kind of response from them that we're getting.
Yeah.
When you include them in the decisions going forward, the more invested they will be. And I'll just leave it at that on everything,
On everything.
including entertainment.
Yeah, amen.
So, with that, if you have any thoughts on the future of the Star Wars IP, we will be reporting on that coming up here in May with the tied into the Skywalker universe, Mandalorian and Grogu. Please let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. And do you agree with us that Star Wars should go into a new galaxy far, far away, or do you like where it is right now? Please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, there's still much more to talk about on today's show. Nintendo Switch 2. I wanted to go ahead and get in a little bit of video game talk over the holidays. The Nintendo Switch 2. Huh. Surprise, surprise. I wonder who was thinking that might happen. Nintendo sales, Switch sales too, were down 35% from previous holidays with the Switch, as far as the Switch 2 is concerned. Is there a concern, Josh, in the video game industry, hearing those numbers from Nintendo?
Yeah, I mean, I would say
35%.
you know, sorry. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I think we're in a lull of games coming out. It's the beginning of the year, so I think we'll have a better, if that number continues like well into the summer, then yeah, I think we'll have a problem. But I think Nintendo doesn't have any games coming out right now. Pokemon, I think, was the last, or Metroid was the last big title to come out. So I don't know, man. I think I'm hopeful that once they do like their beginning of the year Nintendo Direct, that we'll see some excitement, but the whole world of video games is just weird right now because like Xbox with all like the price changes, the lack of content coming out, it's everything is off the rails. So I don't even know like what is are we going to see all this dust settle and see like what is going to be the new norm for video games like once all this stuff finally like levels out, or will it ever level out, you know? And I'm hearing from people that the Steam box is going to end up being, you know, a 900 to $1,100 console. So I don't it's everything's crazy, man. Everything's weird right now with video games. But I mean I don't know if like the drop in, so it can mean one of two things, right? It can mean that people are just not interested in the Nintendo Switch 2, or people are just going elsewhere to play video games, and those numbers could be recovered when Nintendo announces something big like another Pokemon or another, you know, Super Mario game or whatever, because they're not making great choices with gaming releases right now.
That's true, but I think it is going to be a very concerning time because I think what do you know? Surprise, surprise. Younger generations are not getting into
Yeah.
traditional console gaming like they once were. They're going through different avenues through their mobile phone, through other live services that you don't need a console for. And I think that the consoles and the console community did not embrace younger generations. Surprise, surprise. And what we're seeing with movies here in the States, with people, not as many people going to the movies as they once did. We're also seeing with console activity, the things that you and I were so used to as an everyday part of our lives are not an everyday part of lives of younger generations. And I think those entities have to find out exactly is what is connecting with them and try to move forward with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we didn't have technology in our pockets. We can just pull a phone out and play a game whenever we want to. Like kids are sitting there, like my kids especially sit there and they'll just play these like mindless games, right? Where you get to like build a cake or dress a girl up in high fashion clothes or whatever. Like they don't, there's no, they sit there in those games, like they get enveloped. And I think another big factor is social media, right? Like how much time are people spending on social media as opposed to spending on video games, right? Because like you can pull your phone out and scroll through Instagram, and all of a sudden 3 hours has passed. So
Mhm.
I think we're running into an issue of like where are people spending their time, and I think the phones are a big issue, and the phones like I had a feeling when smartphones started to come out that it was going to impact the video game industry, and here we are, man.
Here we are indeed. But if you have thoughts on the struggles of the Nintendo Switch 2, do you think it will continue? Do you think the video game industry is down? Do you think only GTA 6 can save the video game industry later this year? We'll see what happens. But please let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. These RAM prices skyrocketing because of AI taking so much of that bandwidth, and that's not going to help the situation because it'll just make console making more expensive. That has to be put in that factor as well.
Yeah, dude. The I mean, we could have a whole other show on AI, but like, yeah, I mean, I
Oh,
think
one day we will. We
yeah,
will.
I think the arrival of AI has been definitely a big boon in the video game industry, because not boom but boon, right? Because look at all these games now who are being called out, all these developers being called out now for using AI to initially craft the world and then going in and replacing everything. It's a with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes, it does indeed, my friend. So we'll see what happens again. But yeah, you and I have to have a conversation on AI, especially after what I saw at CES a couple, not too long ago. So we'll see what happens. But again, it is the pop culture cosmos. But before we head on out, truly want to thank you for being a part of what we do right here at the pop culture cosmos. It is, of course, Gerald Glassford. Again, some really big decisions need to be made, especially to cater to the future instead of just, again, so much as much as I would like to be catered to. Again, you have to reach out to younger audiences and grow your business accordingly. And we'll see with the video game industry and also Star Wars if they do that indeed. But before we head on out, my friend, I wanted to reach out to you. I put in the notes for today shock value in streaming shows, not just with what's being out there with content, but the way that streaming outlets want their movies and TV shows to be made. So get this, okay? I'm gonna tying this all together. See if this will take up the next 10 minutes before we do an MCU review. You know, and I know you've heard and seen the news recently about some of the hottest shows that are out there, including the hottest show that's out there just recently, I think, concluded a season, Heated Rivalry, with two hockey players that rivals per se that become very intimate. And I'll leave that at that. But it's become a really big hit with the ladies, and so much so that they're actually going to some of the set locations and having pilgrimages to the set locations of Heated Rivalry because it's really been a boon for HBO Max. I'll just leave it at that. The content is very adult, a very adult, super adult, and I know it's not for everybody. Again, the content is what it is. The Knights of the Seven Kingdoms, speaking of HBO, just dropped last night, the first episode of this prequel, per se, set, what, 80, 90 years before the events of Game of Thrones. And I was talking about it with TJ, and I thought of, myself, it looked like something like akin to Heath Ledger's A Knight's Tale, as far as how that, knight, becomes, starts from cleaning the stables to becoming a knight and all that with the games and whatnot. But the one of the first scenes that you've seen in his in Seven Kingdoms is, I think, one of the characters, not the lead character, taking a poop, a projectile poop.
Oh,
To put,
jeez.
yeah. So again, I understand this is raw stuff that now that they're able to go ahead and put out there because it's streaming. Before we get to the Ben Affleck and Matt Damon part of this situation, what are your thoughts? Because again, they're pushing the envelope, and I talked to TJ and I've talked to you before about why I think that streaming shows are creatively better than substantially better. In fact, I told you on my best and worst stuff. The worst of the last thing I did a diatribe on broadcast and cable televisions that they need to get their act together because they're dull for the most part. They're dull watching for a lot of people out there because streaming shows can do a lot more, not with just language, but situations, things like that, more real life ways that they can portray what they're doing that obviously resonates with people. Your thoughts on how far these streaming shows are going to go?
Well, I mean, I think it ties back to the phone situation, right? Like they are clamoring for attention. They
Oh, we're
need,
gonna get to the phone here in the
yeah.
second with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
So it's like, how do I keep you engaged? Like, why don't I just start the show off with some guy taking a crap? Like it's one of those things. Like, I mean, and it's the same thing back when Game of Thrones was popular, right? They're like, how do we keep people engaged in the show? I know the red, and I granted the red wedding happened in the books, but like they way overdid it on the show
Let's
itself.
just cut Sean Bean's head off.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, they're trying, they want people's attention and they're willing to do anything to get it, and they have the freedom to do anything to get
It
it.
caught George R. Martin by surprise, and
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's where it is. It's the same thing with like every stream. Look at the hockey show or whatever. I've seen a lot of funny memes revolving around like the hockey show, but if you look at how, so it every year, so 25% of all book sales in the US are made up of like romance, erotica films, right? That's about, they put that in about $1.4 billion a year of book sales. So like people want, people are interested in that stuff. Not yeah, they're interested in that type of thing, right? So I think they're looking at market trends, being, huh, what will engage with people, and that's what they put into these things, and they take it up to like the 10th level on some of that stuff.
yeah, again, it's something that they're doing and they will continue to do. But again, for me, also, it provides better entertainment because with streaming shows, yes, there are less episodes per season, many less episodes in some cases compared to broadcast counterparts. But it's the content that what they're putting in there is just more fresh the boundaries are so much more than what we see with broadcast television. In broadcast television, it's just so basic. You see delineations of the same thing on every network. It's like Chicago, this. In CBS, it's NCIS or something related to Fire Country. This. In ABC, it's just very formulaic, and I don't see that yet with streaming shows, and that's what keeps us talking. You and I talk about the predominant amount of time when we talk about TV shows. Guess what? They're streaming shows because there's no boundaries right now on what these streaming shows can make or produce, and that to me is the best part of it. Yes, you're going to get some content that people are not going to always agree with, but because they've been allowed to push the boundaries, we do get shows like Pluribus, Severance, Andor, The Pit. We get these shows that do cover a broad range of topics, sometimes controversial, sometimes risque, but they do it and they're allowed to do it in such a I guess a creatively brilliant fashion that we just can't get in broadcast or cable.
Yeah, I mean, but the question here is how long is it going to remain somewhat responsible, right? So look at how American cartoons are now. Like it's screaming, flashing colors and farts. Like that's a majority of American cartoons have that on, especially on Cartoon Network. So like on the streaming services, as long as you're telling a good story, I think all things are permitted,
And
right?
streaming services, the animated shows primarily are pointed towards adults.
Yeah. In streaming shows, as long like I said, as long as there's a good story, I think all is permitted. But how long until a show stops telling a good story and just becomes like adult entertainment? I think that's what. How far are we away from that?
We'll find out, my friend. But again, if you guys have thoughts out there on the streaming outlets and what they do, please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. But before we get to MCU review, there was an interview last week with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon about, they're doing their press for The Rip, which is now on Netflix. They just
I
can't
watched.
seem.
I saw it.
You saw it? What do you think?
Watched it. It was felt like somebody had taken a stuck a fire hose in my face and turned it on. Like
Oh,
it just shooting all the action right down my throat, and I had no I like I had to come up for air. I had to pause it because I had to like sit there and come up for air a couple times, wondering like what is happening right now.
there you go. Maybe on this worst of list, though. We'll see. We'll see as far as for 2026. But The Rip, yes, about a couple of cops who get into some money, and now everybody in their crew is like they're all against each other, whatnot, battling for this money that they found on a raid and whatnot. So down in Miami, it's fun because they're Bostonites, and so they're of course they go down to Florida and become cops there. But need I digress on that? When they had their interview, they talked about how Netflix kind of approached them and asked them in the creative process to make sure that they reiterate the plot 3 or 4 times during the movie because of the attention span for people watching with phones, scrolling and, while watching the movie. Because it said you need to go ahead and reiterate the plot 3 or 4 times because of people paying more attention to their phones than on the screen. Your thoughts on that statement? I'm not going to say it's not true, but now you're trying to put in a newer creative process. And we just talked about the creative process being expanded upon in streaming, but now you're talking about a new type of formula you want done in your movies that I'm not sure Hollywood is eager to join into.
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime you're making something creative, right, you stick to that acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So, I mean, a lot of the times it's already simple enough, unless it's some sort of like art house film. But yeah, I mean, like I can't even tell you like how many times I walk in a living room and my kids have a movie on the screen and they'll have their phones out. Like I have to sit there and tell them like, hey, one screen or the other.
Mhm.
Even now, you go to the movie theaters, despite them playing the advertisements, right, where you turn your phone off, there's still 20 people sitting there texting on their phone while the movie's playing. So this is America has an attention span problem for sure, and also yeah, with movies, like, it is how do you expect people to understand what's going on unless you do, like, constantly explain it to them like they're stupid? Because most of the time, and I don't mean to offend anybody, I think we're entering this place where people under the age of 20 they just don't have the attention span to sit in a 2-hour movie and be engaged in it.
So we'll see what happens, man. But yeah, again, it's going to be interesting to see if this type of filmmaking or this type of series making or this type of the way that Netflix kind of wants you to make your projects on their network, if that's going to become a thing, if that's going to become a thing in and of itself, and going forward, if that's going to be the way that they want their projects to be done, and to see if Hollywood goes along with it, because they're eager to get the cash from Netflix, but are they eager to go ahead and have to reiterate the plot 3 or 4 times during a movie or 3 or 4 times during a series? So we'll go ahead and keep monitoring on that and see how that is embraced by the Hollywood community. But if you have thoughts on that as far as is concerned, please let us know. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. But before we head on out, my friend, another great show indeed. Always great conversation with you. 490 in the books here in less than 5 minutes, but it wouldn't be finished without an MCU review. So where are we at? Where are we at with the MCU?
We are at
Are we on a Spider-Man or am I wrong?
we're on Iron Man 2.
Oh, okay. All right. Kind of timely given the situation with Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, yeah. So Iron Man 2 was I don't know how I feel about Iron Man 2 still, even all these years after watching it. Like, it's not I didn't walk out thinking to myself like, "Oh, that was a bad movie." Even now watching it, like, I don't think it's a terrible movie. I just don't think it's good. I think Iron Man 1 was such a fantastic film that when Iron Man 2 came out and it was just the stakes were so much lower this time around.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Again, it's something where it just seemed like they were feeding off of what they had accomplished in the first one, and just it felt like a half-hour side episode that they could have put instead of like a 2 hour or movie as far as is concerned. It was there, and the problem is it I wanted it to be more, and it really wasn't. It just was like it's almost forgettable at this stage. I just
Yeah.
remember that, I've seen it twice, but I've just remember Mickey Rourke with some chain things going around in the middle of Monaco, the Grand Prix. Yes, and that's what I
Yeah.
remember.
Well, like, look at the last battle, right? Like, it was flashy with War Machine and Iron Man, but it was
Oh yeah, in that set, that blatantly looking set that they had. Yeah.
and it was
If anything,
Mickey.
if any shot in the Marvel Cinematic Universe looks like it was put on a set, that looked like it was on a set.
Yeah, yeah. But Mickey Rourke was he didn't move at all. Like, there was the fight was not exciting. It was just them firing things at each other. Like, Mickey
Yeah,
Rourke just stood still the entire time. Like, what was exciting about that? Nothing. Nothing.
nothing, nothing at all, my friend. And I'm just gonna say, you know what? It the series carried on. It still made its share of money, but yeah, it's not thought of fondly in the MCU. But please, as he says, because of his recent troubles, obviously paying his rent and whatnot, but he says no more money. Don't send any more money to Mickey Rourke. He's saying no more GoFundMe's on that. So yeah, we'll just leave it at that. But my friend, it's been a great episode. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
I think that's it, man. That's all I got.
All right, but we have more coming up on the way for the rest of this month. Of course, Monday and Friday we drop shows for you, so we're just so glad that you are part of it. And again, a big shout out to all the radio stations. 490 episodes, 490 weeks of the Pop Culture Cosmos. We are just so blessed to have all of our radio stations around the world still get our shows, and to our audience out there that listens to us on radio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or on audio podcast outlets everywhere. We cannot thank you enough for all you do for us right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for Josh the Great Peterson, This is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the pop culture cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.
Welcome to the Pop Culture Cosmos.